What's up, you guys? I hope you're doing well. This has been a particularly heavy day. There's just been a lot of turmoil on Earth and in the world. A lot of violence in many places today. I'm not even going to start going into the details of each event that occurred, but the situation escalated in Gaza today. There was a high school shooting. There was that conservative far-right influencer that was assassinated today. And so it reminds me again of the messages that we've been having this week that emphasize that the only thing that will keep us safe and blessed and protected is our collective love, unity, peace, compassion, and humanity. This is going to stir up political rock throwing. That is why we have to maintain our emotional sobriety and not get involved in the chaos that this is going to drum up. Don't feed into that machine, because people out there want people to erupt into chaos, and they want things to disintegrate because it gives people who want control the opportunity and the excuse to go in and take it. When we cast judgment, we activate acts of judgment on ourselves. And so when we judge others harshly, we earn ourselves almost a mile in walking in their shoes, or we alert the angels of karma or tikkun that we are judging. And so that puts their eyes on us. They're the accountants. They judge, okay, what do you deserve, right? When we pray directly to God, our deservingness is bypassed. But like that, our prayers go directly to God. But when we ask for angelic support, the angels don't automatically just jump in and help the situation with rainbows and sunshine. The angels look at the books and look at your merit, and they, like accountants or almost like a court, weigh out how they can intervene in the situation by looking at your own actions and your own attitude and your own vibration. So doing everything we can to promote healing and correcting the darkness that is coming over people. Praying for people's inner peace and clarity and revelation. This is what people who have agendas want. They want people distracted and running around and blaming and getting in fights amongst themselves. And we have to be wise, and we have to have the foresight to see that we can't let any of this toxicity seep in, and we can't let the poison get in. Empathy, compassion, this is what we have to choose. We have to choose against division and separation. We have to choose love. We have to choose healing. We have to choose a way to bridge the gap, to find our way back, to transform. I do have the audio that I'm going to let you guys listen to, but I think I'm going to save it for the last. No, I'm going to pause. I'm going to put the audio in here and let you see the spread, and then we'll come back and talk about the cards. Well, so first of all, we've got Saturn here. We have the golden rose. And we have the reddening. Underneath Saturn, we have Two of Swords. Underneath the golden rose, we have Ace of Pentacles. And under the reddening, we have the Wheel of Fortune. So I'll let you hear the audio and then we'll come right back. Saturn is here with their Scythe. I say there because whilst Saturn is the father of the zodiac, Saturn is representative of the primordial mother of the godhead, Binah. This is almost like thinking about father and mother joined, the divine masculine and feminine joined as one. Binah is the aspect we draw light from during Rosh Hashana, the birthday of humanity and simultaneously the judgment day of humanity. Saturn comes to sort the wheat from the chaff and deliver the harvest that your soul has sown, aka karma. The effort we make to change and to transform and overcome the darkness throughout the year will reflect what kinds of seeds we will plant and what they have the potential to yield in the year to come. This shedding of the consciousness of our flesh is bringing a resurrection to our soul with new life, new vigor, new resilience, and new determination to reveal more light, more love, more goodness. This unified heart, bound in unconditional love and sharing, will reveal miracles in overcoming the darkness. Every act of love and sharing and true change ticks the wheels of fate to shift our collective human destiny. All right, so Saturn. Saturn is the father of the zodiac, but it's also the mother when we look at the tree of life. Getting chart. Hold on. Hold on to your seats, folks. Chart is coming. All right. Whee! So this Binah is the dimension of that Saturn is associated with. So these three spherot here are the upper triad, the supernal triad. The primordial point of all of the existence originates here at Keter. This is the most abstract form of God where all of the essences and expressions of God are in one. This is the white light that contains all of creation. As it moves through these different dimensions, the light is filtered out and made more specific and given specific frequency, specific themes, so to speak, specific categories and uses. So all of these dimensions have many, many, many tons of associations, whether it have to be with like astrology, minerals, elemental associations, angelic associations. Like each dimension has so much involved in it. So everything underneath here is created from these three source materials first. Think of this as like the primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. This is all of everything in one, the unnameable. This Binah is our supernal mother energy, the supernal feminine, and Hakma is the supernal father energy, or the supernal masculine, right? And so from here down, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Sphirot are called Zerin Pen. This is like the human personality comes into effect in these dimensions. And then Malchut is where everything takes its embodiment. This is the material dimension. So you can think of this as the mother and father of reality. During Rosh Hashana, the storehouse of energy that we receive our blessing from, much like an umbilical cord, we've talked about this week, is called Binah. And so Binah is associated with Saturn. Binah is the fountainhead of the column of judgment. Judgment is when we have to go through a process or practice restriction. We may experience discipline or maybe challenges when the left-hand column of judgment is activated. However, during Rosh Hashana, it's so funny because who gives birth to us but our mother? Rosh Hashana is the birthday of all of the souls of mankind. It just so happens, though, that on Rosh Hashana, we also stand before the angelic hosts and all of heaven and before God, and our soul is judged. And it is judged upon the merit of our effort in the year to transform our darkness. It's judged upon how much darkness of seeds we sowed during the year, how many positive actions that we did. Did our heart become more loving, or did it become harder and hardened and darker through the year? So on this judgment day is interesting because it is like, there's paradoxical nature here. So with the Binah being the supernal mother, but also Saturn being the cosmic father, it's like these two are joined to create the child of humanity. The Sphirot Binah is associated with the supernal mother, is also called the infertile mother, but it is also the bringer of life and death. When a mother brings a life into the world, she's a bringer of life, but the nature of life in the physicality is a guaranteed death sentence. So the mother is the bringer of both life and death, both mercy and judgment, right? So all of this sort of comes together in this day of our birthday on Rosh Hashana. And so we are judged, and then we receive a new soul for the year, or our soul is upgraded and reinvigorated. And our soul's destiny for the year is written, and it's put into our soul, and then our soul comes back into our body on Yom Kippur when we fast. So one thing that is interesting is that when a sage or like a prophet or a righteous person completes their tikkun, they leave the earth. Or if they have completed in this lifetime, that's their death day. Many righteous souls die on their birthday or near their birthday. It's like they're coming and going like in the same portal. And it's interesting because it's like when we leave this world, sometimes we leave because we're adding up more tikkun, and God is merciful and God doesn't want us to keep racking up the bill. And so the most cleansing, purifying thing that a soul can go through is actually death. So in the most optimistic sense, a soul, a righteous soul, it's tzaddik, someone who has truly done the work and been had a heart and soul for God, they might actually die on their birthday because they have perfected the work. They have completed their work. And so they left in that completion. So life and death, they're two sides of one coin, and they can't be separated. So this holiday of Rosh Hashana is coming up this next week. And so we will be directly connecting to the light of Saturn, the light of the mother, the supernal mother, who will open up her gates and pour out her blessings to us, her nurturing. But this also is that Scythe of karma taking its swing. And when Saturn shows up, Saturn brings karma with it. And so Saturn says, have you been doing your homework? You know, because the tax man's here to collect, right? The teacher's back and the homework is due, kind of thing. So when Saturn becomes prominent, Saturn either brings you a gift because of the effort that you've made, can bring you blessings, or it can bring you a difficult process to go through. It can bring you more work, right? What does a Scythe do? It's a toil, right? You have to toil with it. You have to swing it. It's handheld. It's difficult, right? It's work. So it takes effort. The thing about the sickle also with Saturn, with the Saturn and Capricorn being like a sort of a judge of some degree, comes here with the Two of Swords. When the Two of Swords shows up, it's like there's a stalemate. It's like there's two equal opposing forces that are causing like a tug of war, and it's preventing something from moving forward or just turning over one way or the other. So we have to get very clear to make up our mind how the consciousness that we are going to choose. Are we going to choose Tree of Life consciousness that chooses unconditional love and sharing and keeps moving towards bringing unity and love into the world and bringing more light? We are working on our soul to become a greater channel for the light of the world. And that means bringing more goodness into the world, not destruction, not darkness, not hatred, not violence, not criticism, even constructive criticism, yes, but when you are evil tonguing and just slandering or talking negatively, evil tongue is very broad, and it's very bad for you. So it's like, it's that old adage, if you can't say something nice, just don't say something at all, really. If you can help it, you know, unless it's an important situation and you're choosing what you're talking about carefully and you're mindful and you're conscious of it. But we need to be very careful about the consciousness that we choose and the consciousness that we spread. We have to very, very sincerely reflect and take inventory of our conscience. We need to understand that we know right from wrong, and we don't let those things get murky because of vitriol. We have to be very clear. Because when the upper realms, when God is judging, there isn't justification, right? We are being separated, the goats and the sheep. And so the goats and the sheep will be decided on how Christ-like they are. Not, did I fall into all these rules that this one ideology or this one school of thought was pushing on me? Did I, show up and be what everybody expected me to be? Did I follow, society's rules? That won't matter, because what is legal is not always moral, and what society says is not, many times, is not right. And people are, you don't know how deeply seated lies get put into things that get spread and spread and spread, and then before people know it, they've been indoctrinated to believe things and they don't even know where those things came from. They're just assuming because they trust the sources they came from, and those sources trusted the sources that they came from. But things can be implanted in indoctrination and ideology that are toxic, and they get seeded, and you don't even realize unless you are vigilant and you are aware and mindful of what is going into your mind and what you're buying into. So the only thing that is safe is that we look at Jesus's teachings straight from the mouth of Jesus. I've been listening to this lecture by a college professor with a doctorate in theology about Merkaba literature this week. And even just listening to the context of who Paul was, which is most of the New Testament is supposedly written by Paul, presumably written by Paul. Paul never met Jesus, right? Paul had this experience that he had, but his teachings are based on his own vision. A lot of it, like, he doesn't even bring up Jesus's teachings, but once or twice, because he's only heard them in hearsay. So then that gets put in, and that's like a big chunk of what people take into their Christian religion. And it's like, well, there's only a couple of gospels that recount Jesus's literal words. And then there's books written by disciples who were there, present. And then some of those were forbidden, right? Because they wanted, by the time that the Nicene Creed organized, Rome, the oppressors who were against Christianity and against Judaism, they just had an uprising of people that they couldn't control anymore. And so they wanted to control the narrative. So they're like, okay, we're still in charge. We're choosing this religion. People are going to do it anyway. So let's pick out the books that, serve our, motives best as well, keeps everybody under control, and props up the leadership, right? And guess what? The disciples weren't involved in choosing the books of the Bible that got included in the Bible. So there's always questionable, like there's always a question hanging out there. Who has interpreted this? How many interpretations have been done since the original text, right? Are there any Aramaic copies left of these Gospels, or were they only found later in antiquity after they'd been translated again and again in Greek? And so, depending on the translator, they can choose how they want to how they want to position things. and skew things if they want, or how they want to word things, the words that they choose, specific words, and the context around the terminology that they choose. Like, studying theology through the lens of like academia and literature really gives you greater context for who wrote and who said what and why and where they would have been coming from. So it gives you a different understanding of when you're approaching the scripture, period. And so the most important words are going to be the words in red, Jesus's words. And then I would say, look at the prophets that Jesus always refers to and that Jesus is quoting. And like Jesus honored the Torah and the writings and the prophets, right? So we know that that's, approved by Jesus. But even still, over the millennia, the scriptures have been reinterpreted and reinterpreted and reinterpreted over and over and over again. So they have to be handled with care, and they have to be, it's good to know that people with an agenda have been for centuries skewing and using that text for their own means. So this is why we have to take it seriously when we're learning how to decipher what it's saying and why and what the context was and who said that. And I like the fact that Judaism is based in a tradition of debate, asking questions, pushing, prodding, going deeper, discussing things, having different schools of thoughts, hashing it out. Whereas Christianity has had kind of a heavy-handed, don't ask questions, take it from me, listen to what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And that's not Jesus's way. Jesus took questions. He answered questions. He entertained questions. He invited them. So with everything in the air these days, it's like we have to be that much more discerning, and we have to be that much more vigilant about what we allow into our consciousness and where it's coming from. Aside from that, the inner work that we're doing in our heart to overcome the fear, the scarcity, the prejudice, the anger, the disillusionment, all of it that's happening right now. Every time we vote against being tempted to get caught up in the darkness, that reveals more light. And here, our next card is the golden rose. This is the gold of alchemy that comes from turning that darkness into light, turning that grudge and that hatred into love and understanding. Can you imagine the miracle it would be right now if the left side and the right side in the United States, and then the whole world, right now the whole world is separated by extreme right people, extreme conservatives, and the rest of us. And so can you imagine the miracle that would, all the miracles that would come forward if all of a sudden all of us stopped dividing one another, and we stopped to try, we genuinely started to try to understand one another and heal, but we're at an impasse because darkness has seeded so deeply in some people. So it's like it's more vital than ever that we check ourselves before we get twisted, before we are soured and ruined. We have to protect our hearts. We have to protect our souls. We have to protect humanity. And so, like we were talking about last night, instead of focusing on all of the cruelty and the horror and the anger and the judgment we feel against the oppressors, we have to turn that fire into a deeper compassion to want to help those who need help. A deeper fire and passion to bring goodness and solutions and help where the world needs it. And so this is the rose. It's the gift. It's the jewel that comes from that inner transformation, that inner change, that desire to shed the ego, that desire to shed the consciousness of the flesh, right? The consciousness of the flesh wants to do anything to keep the feeling of control. The consciousness of the flesh wants to take before they're taken from. The consciousness of the flesh wants to force their way so that they feel safe, right? The consciousness of the flesh is dog eat dog world and walk on anybody you have to get ahead. The consciousness of the flesh is it feels good, so why not? Right? And that's the part of ourselves that we have to restrict. We have to vote against that part of ourselves. We have to put that part of ourselves on the cross. We've got to take up our own cross and we've got to carry it up the hill and we've got to lay down on that thing and we've got to tie ourselves down and we've got to nail ourselves to it. We cannot be putting other people on crosses. That's how we've gotten ourselves into this position. The only person that we should be crucifying is the earthly, fleshly version of ourself, so that a new, resurrected, Christ-like person can evolve, can come forward. And when we do that, we are planting seeds, new seeds that will grow. Every time we have a thought, every time we take an action, every time we're reactive to something, we're planting a seed. And so do you want to plant seeds of love and beauty and goodness and kindness and sharing and life? Or do you want to plant seeds of division, fighting, blame, criticism, darkness, hatred, insecurity, scarcity, lack, doubt? When we get into fights with each other, that cuts us off from the protection that we have built in our unity. When we get into fights with each other, that cuts off the protection that our love and compassion and humanity are putting around the people who are taking risks and putting themselves on the line for the sake of others, right? Our collective goodness and prayers and acts of self-sacrifice to share with others are putting protection around, say, the flotilla, or efforts in the world to save people and the planet and the environment and the animals, right? When we come together with the motivation of love and sharing and unity and brotherhood and kindness, we can do miraculous things. But when we start delighting in our supposed enemies' destruction and loss, then that is that judgment. That is that evil eye that is then exposing us to chaos as well. That is the judgment that ends up casting the eye of judgment right back on us. So we can't feed in to tit for tat. We have to be the ones that say, no, we're not participating in this. We are not going to join in. We are not going to participate in degrading one another, in harming one another in any way. We are not participating in that. We are participating in bringing peace. We are the peacemakers. We are the bringers of love and healing and truth. And sometimes when you bring truth, sometimes that causes initial disruption in peace, right? I think people sometimes can hear we are the peacemakers and think people pleasing, do anything you can to keep it all together. And that's not the same. Because Jesus, although was the Prince of Peace and he was nonviolent and a pacifist, he also brought division into households. He brought the kind of truth that said, this is a line in the sand. And you're either with us or you're not. You either know right from wrong or you do not. Jesus drew a line in the sand and he literally said, look, if you choose to follow me, then that is more important than honoring your parents. If your parents are against you following me, then you might have to rebel against them. Because he said, you know, everybody assumes I'm here to bring peace. And he's like, I have come with a sword. And I am dividing the sheep from the goats. And if, you know, that might mean that it might tear families apart. If they want to stick with the old way and they're determined to stay in tradition, then that might mean that there's 2 against 1 and 5 against 2 in one household, right? So he talked about this. This might separate people in a sense because they're not going to agree. And so, yes, in that sense, we might be initially divided, but the goal is to come back together, right? But you cannot sacrifice choosing Christ consciousness, choosing the light of the Creator. You cannot sacrifice that to please others or to fit in or to be obedient, right? But we also have to radically maintain peace and love, even when we disagree, even when we say the truth, even when we expose the truth, even when we share difficult information. We have to maintain our love. We have to maintain our unity. We have to maintain our compassion. Because it is our salvation, because it is our humanity. We cannot fall into hatred and fighting and conflict and violence. We can't add more to the world. We have to be the ones who are trying to resolve and correct and fix and transmute and transform this from the root. And you cannot do that with force or with bullying people or with shaming people, right? The Bible talks about wanting to lure people in with the beautiful smells, delicious smells, rather than the clanging of hammers and drums and the clanging of cymbals and hammers and nails. So think about the seeds that you are planting. Particularly right now, we are in the last final week of Virgo. Rosh Hashana is right around the corner. And so this is our last week of self-evaluation, doing atonement, doing teshuvah, doing repentance, in order to set ourselves up to plant the best seeds for this year to come, to plant the best seeds in our soul. We do not want to start the year with seeds of chaos. Okay? And so, if we choose right and we're planting seeds of love and we're doing this work and we are yielding alchemical gold, right? We are becoming resilient. We are becoming more compassionate. We are becoming more at peace inside and more steadfast inside. As we are making these changes, there is a new vitality coming. The reddening, we had this recently. This is that flush of life force and vitality. This is like our soul coming back once it's gone up into that judgment, into the upper realms, and it comes back down. It has new life, new energy, new light, new vigor, right? We've got the representation here of the divine feminine and the divine masculine in this alchemical marriage, the combination, the unification, mother and father as one, creating the child of humanity. We have the higher self coming in, connecting to the soul when we have our divine masculine and feminine in balance, and we have that internal sacred marriage. It removes that veil where the soul is no longer separate from the spirit, and things become clear and they're no longer confusing. And so as this new life and this new vitality is coming in, this gold that we've yielded, these choices that we have made to make positive changes and make positive strides towards growth and healing, the effort that we put in is pushing the wheels of fate, and they are clicking into turning it towards a new destiny for mankind and for each individual. So as a collective, the scales of the cosmos are, each of our actions is affecting this right now. And it is hanging by a thread. We cannot add to the darkness, because when we add to the darkness, we're bringing on an apocalypse. We're bringing on the tribulation. We're bringing on that wrath and that judgment. But when we say, no, we are not going there, we are not falling into the clutches of evil, we are not becoming that darkness, then we are taking those sparks of light back from the other side, and we're putting them on the scale on the good side, on the side of goodness. One thing that I have learned watching the people in Palestine over the last few weeks and few months, I've been watching closer and closer and closer over the past few weeks, but over the last couple of years, watching all this play out, I've learned what it really looks like to be resilient. And watching the videos of children still being able to play and people having a moment of joy, and that they still have hope sometimes. You know, some people are still talking about how they still feel it. They still feel hope. And that takes a constant effort to not turn into absolute hatred. They're not sitting over there full of venom. They're still warm, light people. They're still trying to find normalcy while they're building tents in rubble and brushing the crumbs of demolished buildings off of the dough that they had resting. And yet even they can sit there in the midst of all of this and still have love in their heart, and still have lightness, and still have warmth. those sweet little children. It's so hard to look at these videos and these images and look at the reality that we are living in today, and the threats that are surrounding us, and not fall into that darkness. We can't let it. And the fact that if you're looking at it and you're still crying and it still affects you means that you have not been, your soul is still alive, that your heart is still alive, that you have not been broken by the machine that has been trying to break you. So, with the way everything escalated today, be very careful about where your consciousness goes and how you are seeing the things played out. And check yourself. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Be very quick to pull out weeds of darkness. Dear God, please help us to maintain our humanity during these times. Help us maintain the love in our hearts. Help us maintain our light and our joy and our compassion and our empathy and our humanity. Don't let us become like the darkness. Don't let us become like the opponent, because the opponent wants that. That's what the opponent is trying to do. Dear God, help the world right now. Help the people in Gaza. Help the people in Poland and in Ukraine and all over the world, in Sudan and in Congo. Help the people in the United States. Help the people in the United States not fall into poisoned minds of division. Help us find a way to heal and to mend and to come back together. In the name of the Father, the Mother, the Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Baruch Shem Kavod. Amen. And that's all for tonight. And I'll see you tomorrow for our weekly romance oracle reading. We'll see how that goes. All right, you guys. Until tomorrow, peace be with you.